bill. It is far too important to us, to future generations, and to taxpayers. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
We'll interrupt the honourable member's speech, and we'll continue. He has 3 minutes and 45 seconds coming to him when we return to this debate. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. L'honorable député de Niagara.
The honourable member for Niagara Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the value of a passionate and engaged teacher in the life of a student cannot be underestimated. They can mentor, guide, and create an environment where dreams flourish. Tommy Frew is one such educator. Listening to his heart, this proud father and teacher, and once top National Hockey League prospect, courageously faced physical and mental illness for 20 years. He has trained for the past 10 years, Mr. Speaker, to play one game in the NHL, to inspire others as he was inspired to raise awareness. Mr. Speaker, Tommy hopes to be the NHL's oldest rookie. Wanting to give back to his community, Tommy started his campaign to raise awareness and support for Raising the Roof, a leading organization for homelessness prevention, all by playing a single game in the NHL. The NHL's oldest rookie will be known as our campaign. Tommy will prove that with a little faith, endless determination, and a lot of hard work, anything is possible. Tommy will prove that dreams are for everyone.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Souris, Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow, June 3rd, is National Health and Fitness Day. To mark this occasion, I would like to pay tribute to a Baseball Hall of Famer, the late Arlene Johnson-Noga, who sadly passed away on March 14th of this year. Arlene grew up on a farm in Ogama, Saskatchewan, in my home riding. She is an excellent example of a pioneer in female athletes. Scouted out of high school, Arlene played for 2 teams in the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League from 1945 to 1948. After that, Arlene went on to be a consultant for the film A League of Their Own, which tells the story of an All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. Believe it or not, Arlene taught Madonna how to properly slide into a base and taught Rosie O'Donnell how to play shortstop. Arlene is a great example of how participation in sport can enrich a person's life. I encourage all of you to get out and get active in your communities this National Health and Fitness Day.
Well, l'honorable député de...
The honourable member for Châteauguay-Lacolle.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to give members a heads up for an event I'm sponsoring on the Hill next week with the Canadian Foundation for Economic Education. The event is a money fair being put on by students from Ottawa's Immaculata High School, and it will take place next Thursday, June 8th at 11:30 at the Sir John A. Macdonald Building. MPs are invited to meet students who will share money smart lessons that they've learned through a program called Talk with Our Kids About Money.
I'd also like to take this opportunity to inform the House that I've given notice that I will be making a motion on education, on financial education as part of private members' business. Motion M125 calls on the Finance Committee to study the implementation of the National Strategy for Financial Literacy and to use a gender-based analysis to evaluate whether it is meeting the needs of different social groups. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable député de Laurier.
The honourable member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, every day, the agents of our Parliamentary Protection Service ensure the safety of members and their guests. They do it all with a smile and all while remaining impartial and very professional. Remaining impartial on Parliament Hill can be difficult when your superiors are RCMP members and the Minister of Public Safety. The NDP is proud to support the demands of our Parliamentary Protection Service agents. They deserve the respect of this House and this government, both in their work and in their negotiation. I also encourage the government to amend the Parliament Act so that the Parliamentary Protection Service will be able to make decisions independently once again. This is a question of principle and of respect of the separation of powers in our democracy. To the agents of the protection services, you have all of our respect, and we thank you for being here for us.
The honourable member for Nepean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to acknowledge the hard work of Barhaven Food Cupboard, which is an important community group in my riding of Nepean for almost 50 years. This vital service is available because of the continued efforts of Barhaven United Church and the hard work of volunteers like David Rattray, David Sereda, and their team. I would like to thank them for all their hard work. Since 2009, there has been a 150% increase in the number of families who use the food cupboard every month. This increasing demand for their support has outgrown their current space, and today the food cupboard volunteers are working hard on plans to build their own facility in Barhaven. Mr. Speaker, I call on the government to make the construction of food banks and other similar organizations eligible to apply for the infrastructure investments we are making. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
From the 1860s to 1948, over 100,000 children immigrated to Canada from the United Kingdom, all believed to be orphans. During World War I, many British home children enlisted in the Canadian Expeditionary Forces. 146 died fighting at Passchendaele, and 46 died on day one at Vimy Ridge. In total, 689 died in the battles of Vimy Ridge, Hill 70, and Passchendaele. 218 of their names are on the Vimy Memorial, 122 are on the Menin Gate Memorial. Victoria Cross recipient Claude Nunny was a British home child, and as was Don Cherry's grandfather, Richard Palamountain. Today, two are still alive. 93-year-old George Beardshaw and 92-year-old John Vallance both served in the Canadian Army. Mr. Speaker, it's important to recognize and highlight the services of these children to Canada. I want to thank Simcoe County residents Laurie F. Chesky and Steve Glover for the work they've done on behalf of British home children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Laurentides-Labelle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the summer approaches, I want to talk about the importance of tourism for the region of the Laurentians. Thousands, or rather millions, of tourists and resort goers visit our region, providing thousands of jobs in our region, from Saint-Anne-des-Lacs to Sainte-Anne-du-Lac, from Notre-Dame-du-Lot à Estérel. With thousands of lakes and rivers, my region is the perfect playground for tourism. It's essential that we work together to preserve this important asset. That's why I'd like to recognize the dedication of everyone who works to protect the lakes and rivers in my area, who are part of the Sustainable and Responsible Navigation Coalition. With the Eurasian water milfoil in dozens of our lakes, we have no time to lose. By raising awareness and focusing on prevention, we can preserve our lakes and rivers for future generations and for all the tourists who visit our beautiful region. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, this weekend Whitby will be hosting the Brooklyn Spring Fair. Our community will welcome more than 30,000 visitors, and I look forward to families participating in the parade at the Midway and learning about the agriculture in our community. I wish to thank the Board of Directors and volunteers for their hard work and dedication on the success of this fair. Each year they strive to make this a can't-miss event in Whitby, and we certainly know how to end Tourism Week with a bang. Today, third-grade students will be enjoying Education Day. Families can explore farming in the 21st century via Agriland. And new for 2017, the young and young at heart can enjoy the Vintage Car and Truck Show. I look forward to seeing everyone along the parade route tomorrow, especially my Brooklyn moms, as it is Gender-Based Analysis Plus Week. I'm also excited to defend my title as the Blue Ribbon award-winning pie-eating champion tomorrow at 1:45. See you at the fair.
The honourable member for Beauport-Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans-Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, since May 15th, we've been witnessing a shameful spectacle from the government across the way. This has to do with the overtly partisan nomination of Madeleine Meyer as Official Languages Commissioner. A senior official's position should be apolitical. The process should be honest, rigorous, and transparent, and that is not the case with Madeleine Meyer. It's unacceptable that parliamentarians in this House are being misled when there's new evidence every day that this nomination was partisan. I'm sad to see my colleagues across the way being taken hostage by their minister's decision. The Minister of Heritage continues to justify this dishonorable choice. And we call on the minister to finally show some respect to this House, to finally make the right decision and to withdraw Madeleine Mayor from the process.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to rise in the House today to speak about our government's commitment to affordable housing. Last week, we announced over $7 million in funding for transitional housing for survivors of domestic violence, for new seniors units, and for renovations to existing units in Prince Edward Island. This is part of our ongoing commitment to affordable housing, building on our historic investment in Budget 2017. There is no doubt that we can and must do more. Sadly, a lack of affordable housing is not limited to major centres. I frequently see constituents in my office pleading for help in finding a safe, secure, and affordable place to live. It is a heartbreaking, hopeless conversation. We know that one of the first steps in breaking the cycle of poverty is ensuring that our most vulnerable have a roof over their head. One day, we will be judged on how we treat those less fortunate. I believe this to be particularly true for those in leadership positions, which is why I am proud to be part of a government that is addressing this urgent need in Canada.
Well, the honourable member for La Salle, Verdun.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, last week I had the honor of visiting 2nd grade and 4th grade classes at the Verdun Elementary School. Mr. Angelo's students shared a parliamentary simulation with me, which showed their interest in our role as members of the government.
Parliament started with students singing O Canada, followed by an introduction by you, Mr. Speaker. Ministers and members of both sides of the House, as well as past members and famous Canadians, then rose to introduce themselves and share personal anecdotes. I was right at home, Mr. Speaker, seated behind the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development. Mr. Speaker, these budding parliamentarians recognized the significance of Remembrance Day, of Earth Day, and suggested that Winnie the Pooh be Canada's first official bear. They also ensured that I did not leave empty-handed by giving me Flat Stanley as a traveling companion. Mr. Speaker, I want to salute the efforts of these engaged teachers at Verdun Elementary. I am convinced that they are forming future citizens and parliamentarians, and they have my full support. Thank you.
The honourable member for Calgary Shepherd.
Mr. Speaker, 20 years ago in the former riding of Calgary East, a man we affectionately know just by his first name was first elected to this House. From his trademark quips like, "Our position has not changed," or "Wake up and smell the thing," the member from Calgary Forest Lawn has become a cherished parliamentary institution. I'm pleased to call him my friend. He's been a tireless advocate of Canadian interests, not just here in Canada, but throughout the world. As the former parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, he clocked more miles, more air miles, than any other member promoting our country with pride and championing international human rights. In fact, Mr. Speaker, Foreign Minister John Baird even named him Canada's first intergalactic ambassador on Twitter. Born in Tanzania, he has proved that anything is possible in Canada, regardless of your origins. He is most importantly a devoted husband to his wife Nina, and a loving father and grandfather to Devin and Ivasha. From his trademark scars to his extensive knowledge of world affairs, I'm sure all members will agree with me that the member for Calgary Forest Lawn is the complete deep package.
The honourable member for Moncton, Riverview, Dieppe.
This month was Brain Tumor Awareness Month.
Every day, 27 Canadians learn that they have a brain tumor. Because they affect the control centre for our thoughts, feelings, and movement, brain tumors can have a huge impact on a person's physical and cognitive abilities, as well as their quality of life. They don't discriminate. They affect people of all ages and all backgrounds.
Our citizens have had their lives changed dramatically by a brain tumor. I want to say a big thank you to the dedicated volunteers like Sharon McCutcheon and Janine Leblanc of the Moncton Brain Tumor Support Group, who have worked so hard to improve the lives of Canadians living with brain tumors in our region. But just because May is over, it doesn't mean that we cannot make it our year-round effort to make sure that we do all the education. Ça fait finalement, alors continuons à...
So let's continue to raise awareness about brain tumors. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, it's a great honour for me to rise today to mark the 100th anniversary of the municipality of McMasterville. It's true. My lovely city in my riding has been around for 100 years. In 1917, it was founded to house workers of Canadian Explosives Limited, and it was named after the first president of that company, William McMaster. It's an entryway to the Richelieu Valley. It has a view over Mont Saint-Hilaire, and its 100 years have been marked by good management, strong community spirit, and an environment where young families can enjoy exceptional quality of life. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Gilles Plante, the mayor of the municipality since 1993, who has ensured the sustainability of the municipality and this year has helped prepare for the 100th anniversary celebrations. Happy 100th anniversary to all the residents of McMasterville. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Haldimand Norfolk.
Come and listen to a story about a cracker named Ritz, who first won his HoC riding in a blitz of '97. Riled about the crow rate and the guns the libs were banning, he hitched his wagon to reform, led by Preston Manning. A builder and a farmer with a deadly quick whip, the member for Malpeque knows he's felt the brunt of it. One of his proudest wins when he was Ag Minister was blowing up the wheat board, Liberals braid, sinister. The member from North Battleford has a lot of passions, Chevys, guns and rifles, and dressing in the best fashion. Grandkids fishing, golf and boots, and of course Judy. Harley's single malts, but always first is Judy. Rosetown's favorite son has earned all of our respect. Thanks to him, food exports are more than any could expect. CETA, cold cuts, killing case, and staff who got his pranks. For 20 years of service, this wise cracker has our thanks.
The Honourable Member for Louis-Hébert. Mr. Speaker, last year at the end of the session and at the beginning of summer, I'd invited all of my colleagues from the House from all parties to participate in the Quebec City Summer Festival. This year, they're celebrating their 50th anniversary from July 6th to 16th with a great lineup including Flume, Kendrick Lamar, Pink, Gorillaz, Lady Antebellum, and the Backstreet Boys, among many others. But this year, I also want to invite you to the Rendezvous Laval from July 18th to 23rd. There are 40 majestic ships that will be converging there.
And become a trainee on one of the tall ships. And in your case, I would recommend boarding the Impossible Dream from the U.S., kind of like getting order in this house from that side. And speaking of that side, Mr. Speaker, if the new leader of the Conservative Party wants to take a lesson in leadership, I would recommend he boards the ship Rana 2, because he does have big shoes to fill. And as for the NDP contenders, I would recommend boarding the When and If from the U.S. Quant à mes collègues libéraux...
As for my Liberal colleagues, Mr. Speaker, I think clearly they'll want to enjoy the 24-meter-long boat Nice Breeze, because everyone knows a nice breeze is great with sunny ways.
Oral questions. Question orale. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Appointment as Languages Commissioner symbolizes everything that is wrong with this Prime Minister's approach. But he can't seem to see the problem, so I'll make it simple. Mayor is a former Liberal Cabinet Minister and donor with deep connections to both the Prime Minister's and to the Heritage Minister's offices. This makes it impossible for her to objectively investigate either. Exactly. How can the Prime Minister not see that this appointment is deeply flawed?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Thank you for the attempted promotion, Mr. Speaker. Our two official languages are at the heart of who we are as Canadians and is a priority for our government. The experience, expertise and integrity of Ms. Mayer has been recognized by many, both in this House and in the official languages community across Canada. Yesterday, the Francophone community called on this House to end the political games and support this nomination. Ms. Mayer will fulfill her duties with all the experience and impartiality required for this important position.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, the only people who seem okay with this absurd level of patronage are fellow Liberals. That's because the Prime Minister is wasting no time in rewarding his Liberal friends. Generous Liberal donations from the new president of HoC and the Languages Commissioner show exactly what qualifications this Prime Minister is looking for. Why can't he simply be honest with Canadians about his appointment process and advertise that it's only Liberals that need to apply?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, HoC is dedicated to helping Atlantic Canada realize its full economic potential in terms of innovation, growth, productivity and competitiveness. Our government would like to thank the former President Paul Leblanc for his years of service to HoC in the Atlantic region. The newly appointed President, Mr. Speaker, Francis Maguire, is known and respected as a respected individual in the Atlantic region, and he's got an extensive experience working in both the private and public sectors.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
And he's donated over $30,000 to the Liberal Party over the last 10 years. Forgot to mention that. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Liberal House Leader said that Canadians who want to be the next Ethics Commissioner can apply on the government website. But that was false. The posting for the Ethics Commissioner is nowhere to be found on the website. Now, the House Leader is famous for avoiding questions and giving non-answers, but now she just seems to be making things up. Can the Prime Minister guarantee that when the Ethics Commissioner job finally is posted, that there won't be a Liberal Party donation link right beside it?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as the member very well knows, is that we have put in place a new, open, transparent, merit-based appointment process, and any positions that are available are posted online so that Canadians can apply for those positions. We are looking for
I realize it's Friday and everybody's excited to get home on the weekend and the excitement is oozing in, but I'm trying to hear the answer and I'm having a hard time over the heckling. I would ask all the members to show some respect. The Honourable Government House Leader.
This process is looking to identify high-quality candidates who will help to achieve gender parity and truly reflect Canada's diversity. Under this process, we have made over 140 appointments. These are great appointments. We will continue to do the good work that Canadians expect us to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Beauport.
The honourable member for Beauport, Côte de Beaupré, Île d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Another week draws to an end under the cloud of Liberal arrogance. The Heritage Minister refuses to back down from her bad decision to choose Madeleine Meyer as Commissioner of Official Languages, not for her skills, but for brazenly and shamefully partisan reasons. When is the Minister going to realize that Ms. Meyer has already lost all credibility before day one, and that it's high time the selection process was started over again in an honest and apolitical way?
Carry to the Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, let me first thank the member for her question and her work on the Official Languages Committee. As she knows, we have committed to finding the best possible person for Official Languages Commissioner, and that's what we did. Skill, experience, and integrity are things that everyone recognizes in this candidate on both sides of the House, and we are convinced that she will do her job with all the experience and impartiality necessary for the role.
La ministre du Patrimoine.
The Heritage Minister is misleading the House day in, day out, and can't even be bothered to apologize. Talking out of both sides of her mouth seems astoundingly easy for her, not to mention obfuscation. What we're calling for is quite simple. Cancel Ms. Meyer's appointment as Official Languages Commissioner and restart the process in a transparent, fair, and apolitical way. Knowing the opposition parties don't support this appointment at all, when will she do the right thing and start the process over? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, as I said, our two official languages are a priority for this government. Ms. Meyer is a lawyer who has dedicated a large part of her career to protecting both official languages and the vitality of our communities. She will be an important watchdog. She will ensure that the Official Languages Act is respected. She will enforce it, and she will perform her duties with all the experience and impartiality needed.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' softwood lumber aid package comes after thousands of Canadians have already lost their jobs. The Liberals were so confident they would get a deal done with Obama, but they walked away from the negotiating table. And now with Trump in office, there's no deal in sight. Meanwhile, billions of dollars will flow out of Canadian communities and into U.S. coffers. Our forestry workers are the ones who are paying the price. When will the Liberals get back to the negotiating table and secure a long-term solution to the softwood lumber crisis?
The Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, it was the previous Conservative government that allowed the softwood lumber agreement to expire.
Okay, I'll let the Honourable Minister continue.
We strongly disagree with the U.S. Commerce Department's decision to impose unfair and punitive duties. We're going to fight those duties in the courts, and we're going to win because we always do. We are at the negotiating table. I met twice this week with Secretary Ross, but I want to remind all the honourable members, we're going to get a good deal for Canada, not just any deal.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the government finally announced an aid package for the softwood lumber industry, which is going through tough times, which will only get worse with time. Resolu's Kenogami and Dolbo plants are also in grave danger. Hundreds of jobs are in jeopardy, and if nothing's done, thousands will be lost all over the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean region. Can the Trade Minister confirm, yes or no, whether the Kenogami and Dolbo plants will qualify for government support under the plan announced yesterday?
Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada's forest industry sustains hundreds of thousands of good middle-class jobs across our country. Our government continues to fight vigorously to defend the interests of the Canadian lumber industry, including through litigation. We are taking immediate action to help Canadians who are affected by these unfair and punitive duties. Our announcement yesterday includes investments to diversify forest products and markets, support for affected workers, and financial products and services at commercial terms. These measures will defend Canadian interests and promote the long-term health and transformation of the industry. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the NDP attempted to shed light on the appointment of Ms. Meilleur, former Liberal minister, to the nonpartisan position of Official Languages Commissioner. The Liberals said they had nothing to hide, but they blocked the committee's inquiry. Now, don't forget, Jerry Butts spoke to Madeleine Meilleur before she was appointed, and he reports to the Prime Minister. So if the Liberal government wants to pretend it had nothing to do with blocking the committee's inquiry, will they ask Jerry Butts to voluntarily appear before the committee? Yes or no? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We recognize the importance of the Official Languages Commissioner, and we committed to finding the best possible candidate for the position. In terms of my colleague's allegation, I'd like to specify that at no time was the topic of the position of Official Languages Commissioner raised. There is a process in place, and that process was followed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals say they are so proud of the nomination, yet they can't explain why Madeleine Meilleur testified that she had special access to the Prime Minister's closest advisors. Yeah. And yesterday, Liberals blocked an investigation into the entire appointment process. Wow. If they are proud of this appointment, why are they preventing us from understanding exactly how Madame Meilleur was selected? If the Liberals are so proud of this appointment, why do they keep acting like they have something to hide?
Yeah, sure. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, as the member knows well, the committees of this House are independent and are masters of their own affairs. Mr. Speaker, our government believes in the importance of the office of the Official Languages Commissioner and in the protection and promotion of our two official languages. After a rigorous, open and merit-based process which included 72 candidates, a selection committee, multiple rounds of interviews and testing, Madame Meilleur clearly emerged as the most qualified candidate for this important position. As for the allegations of the member opposite, I would like to clarify that at no time was the position of Official Languages Commissioner discussed. There is a rigorous process in place, and it was followed.
The honourable member for Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. All week, opposition members have been asking the Heritage Minister to explain the inappropriate appointment of Ms. Mayer as the Commissioner of Official Languages. We have read back testimonial from committees, requested a list of the final 10 candidates, proven incestual ties to the Liberal fundraising campaigns, and clarified shared staff between the Minister and Ms. Mayer. When will this minister stand up and start taking this question seriously, stop reciting the Liberal appointed commissioner's resume, and admit that this appointment is nothing but Liberal patronage?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, our two official languages are at the heart of who we are as Canadians and is a priority for our government. The experience, expertise and integrity of Ms. Mayer has been recognized by many, both in this House and in the official languages communities across Canada. For 30 years, she's worked tirelessly to promote official language rights and services, including the protection of the Montfort Hospital to ensure access to health care in both official languages in Ottawa. Ms. Mayer will fulfill her duties with all the experience and impartiality required for this important position.
The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable. That answer, Mr. Speaker, is shameful. He's not answering our questions. An open and transparent appointment process, but it always ends with the hiring of a candidate with a Liberal past, an invitation to apply online, but only Liberal donors get a fast pass. Mr. Speaker, since the Liberals took office, sunny ways have given way to golden ways for Liberal cronies. Are the Liberals going to stop rolling out the red carpet for partisan appointments, cancel the appointment of Madeleine Mayer, and respect the House of Commons once and for all? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, as I said, we committed to finding the best possible candidate for the position of Official Languages Commissioner, and that is precisely what we did after a long, lengthy process that was merit-based with 72 candidates reviewed by the selection committee. Ms. Mayer clearly stood out as the best candidate with the most experience and impartiality needed for the position. The Prime Minister consulted the leaders of the other parties.
Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, the Heritage Minister doesn't seem to understand that the Official Languages Commissioner must be nonpartisan in order to execute her role with impartiality. Madame Mayer was a Liberal cabinet minister up until a year ago. She's donated to the Liberal Party and the Prime Minister's own leadership campaign. She even said she met with the Prime Minister's closest advisors about her appointment, which the Heritage Minister denies. The Minister claims one thing, while Madame Mayer says the opposite. There's a clear contradiction. Someone isn't telling the truth. Who?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, we are committed to finding the most qualified candidates for each position. We also believe that taking part in public life should not exclude you from serving Canadians in a new capacity. Once again, it's the qualifications that matter. In fact, we appointed Kim Campbell to lead the Supreme Court of Canada Advisory Board. Like Kim Campbell, we firmly believe that Madeleine Mayer will be able to serve Canadians with all of the accountability, impartiality and rigour required.
Hear, hear.
I'd like to remind the honourable members to maybe just have a little bit better control on their inner voice. The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
Well, the puzzle is starting to show that there was no coincidence in anointing Madeleine Mayer as the Official Languages Commissioner. The pieces show that Madame Mayer went down a familiar path known to many Liberals. If you want some patronage, you talk directly to the Prime Minister's friends. We know that at least 2 members of the Heritage Minister's staff used to work for Madame Mayer when she was a Liberal minister. We also know that someone from the Minister's office was part of the selection committee. Who was it?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, after a long, open process based on merit, Ms. Mayer clearly demonstrated that she will fulfill her duties with all of the experience and impartiality required. As already mentioned, we take the appointment process for the Commissioner of Official Languages very seriously. A selection committee composed of a majority of public servants gave the minister a short list of recommendations which informed the final nomination. All measures required were taken to ensure that these employees be excluded from the appointment process.
The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
Just stop it, okay? Like really, reading the same lines over and over in this House doesn't make it any better. This is a complete and utter train wreck. And like a train wreck, this isn't going to end very well. Mr. Speaker, how can the minister say that her staff wasn't in conflict with the mayor nomination? They used to work with her at Queen's Park. I'm asking the minister to show proof of this so-called firewall that she says exists, and will the minister commit right now to tabling the conflict of interest documents signed by her staff?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, those weren't the same lines, but these are. There was a long, open process based on merit, and Ms. Mayer clearly demonstrated that she will fulfill the duties with all of the experience and impartiality required. A selection committee composed of a majority of public servants gave the minister a short list of recommendations which informed the final nomination, and all measures required were taken to ensure that these employees be excluded from the appointment process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary, Rocky Ridge.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it is just embarrassing to listen to this parliamentary secretary repeat the same sophomoric drivel over and over again. The Ethics Commissioner is investigating the Prime Minister. The Lobbying Commissioner is investing cash for access fundraising. The Liberals have made a shambles of watchdog appointments when they botched the Official Languages Commissioner appointment through obvious patronage. Will the Prime Minister agree and guarantee that as they search for an Ethics Commissioner, they won't simply recruit another Liberal insider?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, as I've said time and time again, we have put in a new process, an open, transparent, merit-based process to ensure.
What happened? There was screaming going on. I just thought I'd calm things down. The Honourable Government House Leader.
We have put in a new, open, transparent, merit-based process to ensure that Canadians can apply. All available positions are posted online. And when it comes to the work that the Ethics Commissioner is doing, that the Lobbying Commissioner is doing, and so forth, we value their work, and we know that they do their work well. We will let them continue to do their work. Any information that we can provide, we will continue to do so, as has been said. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, it's often said the devil's in the details. Bill C-50, which purports to limit political financing activities, actually preserves the Liberals' Laurier Club. Wealthy individuals can pay $1,500 in exchange for special access to cabinet ministers and the Prime Minister. In short, it's about as convincing as other efforts they've made to clean things up. Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister refusing to put an end to this backroom wheeling and dealing?
Minister for Democratic Institutions.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had the pleasure to introduce Bill C-50 last Wednesday, and for the first time, political financing activities are going to be more transparent, more open. Canadians will know who attended these events, whether the Prime Minister or a cabinet minister was in attendance, a party leader or a leadership candidate of a party. This is a first in Canadian history, and I look forward to having the debate here in this place on that bill.
Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, on the very day that 180 Liberals broke their promise to Canadians to make every vote count, they chose that day to promise to fix the cash for access mess. Who created this mess in the first place? Oh, right, it was Liberals. But wait, what's this? Bill C-50 has a Liberal loophole so big you could drive a limo through it. Wealthy Liberal Laurier Club donors can drop their cash at a Liberal convention, and this bill doesn't apply. Good news for the wealthy and the well-connected. So where did Liberals summon the political courage for such breathtaking cynicism?
The Honourable Minister for Democratic Institutions.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for the question. This legislation, for the first time, is going to let Canadians know when, where, and who attended fundraisers. This will take place during appreciation events and fundraisers that have a cost of over $200, where a party leader, leadership contestant, cabinet minister, or prime minister is present. This legislation is important. It's creating more openness and more transparency, and we know that all parties in this place require money to operate, and that's an important form of democratic expression. Thank you.
The honourable member for South Surrey White Rock.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The minister stated that the Infrastructure Bank would be arm's length from government, but the legislation clearly states that the Minister of Finance and Cabinet approves and guarantees the loans, appoints the board of director, approves the CEO. They can fire these people at any time without cause. As well, used BlackRock executives to develop the legislation. So not only is there a blatant conflict of interest, there's potential for significant interference. Can the minister tell this House exactly what he meant by arm's length?
The Honourable Minister for Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pretty sure the honourable member who served on City Council as a mayor would like to join me welcome the Federation of Canadian Municipalities delegate to Ottawa to serve the people who are helping build sustainable communities in partnership with the federal government. As far as members' question is concerned, we have been able to create a right balance between making sure that the bank is accountable to Parliament, at the same time as a Crown Corporation making a decision on its own to build the infrastructure that our communities require.
Well done.
The honourable member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, after the scandals with BlackRock and the shady relationship with KPMG, we now see that external forces are literally manipulating the Liberals. We parliamentarians got only an hour and a half in committee to study the Infrastructure Bank, which the Liberals created for themselves for the benefit of their cronies with $35 billion in taxpayer money. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals want to silence us, but we have no intention of stopping. We are going to fight on behalf of all taxpayers. When is the minister going to stop this scandal, Mr. Speaker?
Infrastructure and communities.
Mr. Speaker, we have put forward a very ambitious agenda to build and rebuild Canadian communities with tripling of the federal investments up to $186 billion. And Infrastructure Bank is one tool to build more infrastructure. Who is going to benefit from this, Mr. Speaker? Are Canadians, Canadian communities, to build more housing, to build more public transit, to build more recreational, cultural facilities. Those are not the cronies going to help going to get the benefits from this bank. It's the Canadians who are going to benefit from this bank. I understand the honourable member is not calling.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Currently, governments force infrastructure builders to cover cost overruns through fixed-price contracts and to buy bankruptcy insurance to protect taxpayers in the event the contractor goes under. The Infrastructure Bank would instead put all of these losses on the shoulders of taxpayers through loan guarantees. Why are the Liberals giving all of the profits to crony capitalists and all of the losses to Canadian taxpayers?
The Honourable Minister for Infrastructure and Communities.
Well, Mr. Speaker, is the honourable member calling Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, the Teachers Fund, the OMERS, the Caisse de Dépôt, the Alberta Investment Management Corporation cronies? They're the one who will partner with our government to build the infrastructure that our communities need. Right? They're the one who've been helping build infrastructure in other countries. So what is wrong that people who manage our pensioners' funds will invest in our own community to create jobs for the middle class and help grow our economy and create opportunity?
The honourable member for Carleton.
The top public servant responsible for the Infrastructure Bank said it is designed for, quote, underwriting sophisticated, highly complex projects. The word underwriting comes from the 17th century London insurers would literally write their names under a list of cargo on shipping vessels. If the ship sank, so did the underwriter's money. Why is the government forcing Joe taxpayer to write his name under billions of dollars of losses.
The Honourable Minister for Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, the bank is one very important tool to create economic growth across Canada, create jobs and grow our economy. Let me share with the Honourable Member what the International Monetary Fund has to say about the Infrastructure Bank. It says the infrastructure investments are a cornerstone of government's growth strategy, and the proposed Canada Infrastructure Bank will be an effective instrument in achieving this goal. This is coming from a reputable international organization that monitor government's finances. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Cowichan, Malahat Langford.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have made a real mess of their plan to legalize marijuana. First, they left the provinces and the justice system in a state of utter confusion. Then they refused to decriminalize, which led to thousands of arrests under their watch. Next, they've sent mixed messages on pardons, which could have terrible consequences for young people. And now they're risking violating a major UN treaty because they can't get their act together. Cheech and Chong could have managed this process better. Why have the Liberals bungled this file so badly? They know it's not legal yet, right?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
The government is taking a regulatory approach to better protect the health and safety of Canadians. That's our priority. We're currently examining a range of issues, including our international commitments. As the member opposite should know, 8 American states have already decided to legalize recreational cannabis. We are committed to working with our global partners to best promote public health and combat illicit drug trafficking.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, public safety should be a top priority for any government, and the safety and security of Parliament Hill is of importance to us all. But currently there is a labour dispute involving our protective services where the employer is refusing to negotiate. Will the Minister address this issue and what it means for public safety? And specifically, will the Minister consider modifying the Parliament of Canada Act so that the independence of our protective services is enshrined in law?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure this is a matter before the House. The question was ruled out of order yesterday, but I will say that every single day that I walk through those doors, every single day that I've walked through those doors since 2004, the men and women that serve this place do us incredible honor, and I want to rise and thank them for the contributions that they make. Thank you.
I believe this item was ruled on yesterday by the Speaker, who was sitting in the chair. We'll bring it back and we'll continue. The Honourable Member for Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, Canada 150 is an opportunity to engage Canadians in their communities from coast to coast to coast. It provides us with an opportunity to think about the past, reflect on all we've accomplished so far, and look towards the future with optimism. We know that many Crown corporations and government agencies are joining us in the celebration. With the Parliamentary Secretary of Finance, for the Minister of Finance, please share how the Bank of Canada is participating.
Question. We are proud to support the Bank of Canada as they introduce the Canada 150 banknote. The commemorative note, which went into circulation yesterday, will mark the first time that a Canadian woman, an Indigenous Canadian, are depicted as a portrait of subjects on the banknote of Canada. As we celebrate Canada 150, we are reminded of what makes us who we are. We are strong because of our diversity, not in spite of it. I thank the Governor Pelosi and the Bank of Canada for their contribution to its truly national celebration and encourage all Canadians to keep an eye out on the new note. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Forest Lawn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, energy is a very vital sector for the Canadian economy. It's true. It provides jobs from coast to coast to coast. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, it puts food on the table. Speak of all Canadians. The question is this: we are now having forces coming up that are going to obstruct this energy sector, put roadblocks to the energy sector. What can the Liberals tell us? What promise can we rely on the Prime Minister to ensure he stands up for the jobs in Canada, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
As Prime Minister said, the decision we took on Trans Mountain Pipeline was based on facts and evidence and what is in the best interests of Canadians. Regardless of a change of government in British Columbia or anywhere, the facts and evidence do not change. We understand that growing a strong economy for the future requires taking leadership on the environment, and we have done those two things together. This is what drives us to make the choices we make, and we will stand by those choices. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary, Forest Lawn.
Mr. Speaker, there is evidence and facts also of broken litany of promises by the Liberal government.
Hear, hear.
Hear. This is about jobs, Mr. Speaker. Jobs. Let me repeat very clearly. Jobs. It's about jobs, putting food on the table, Mr. Speaker. So it is very important that, Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government go out to British Columbia and tell them how much have they benefited from the energy sector, Mr. Speaker. Absolutely. Only then they will know that they are part of this country and the energy sector has benefited them. So will the Liberals tell us, can we rely on the Liberals, or will this be another broken promise where they will not stand up for jobs for the Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we would not have approved these projects if they were not in the national interest and did not have the support of Canadians. We have said many times the choice between climate action and pipeline approval is a false one. We are committed to an approach that does both. We recognize that there is a diversity of opinion with respect to major energy projects, and we will continue to work with all parties and provinces. Our goal right now is to make sure that projects move forward in order to build a stronger future and good middle-class paying jobs for Canada. Thank you.
The honourable member for Battleford Lloydminster.
Mr. Speaker, since the U.S. withdrew, high-level TPP discussions have continued in Chile, here in Canada, Vietnam, and will happen next in July in Japan. The message coming out of these meetings is always positive, and the remaining countries will continue to work to bring the TPP into force by the end of this calendar year. Silence from Canada, though. Japan and New Zealand have already ratified, and Australia and Mexico are not very far behind. Japan has said also we will not get a better deal in the bilateral agreement than we have in the TPP. When will our Trade Minister join our allies to bring a TPP into force here in Canada?
The Honourable Minister for International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, one thing that I think my colleague cannot reproach me is to be on the road and promoting Canada. As you well know, I was in Vietnam, I was also in Korea, Singapore, and Japan, Mr. Speaker, just last week. Mr. Speaker, what we said in Vietnam, and my colleague knows well, is that countries have recommitted to make sure that we have open, fair, and balanced trade in the Asia-Pacific region. Principled trade, that's what people want. We've committed to take action, so we're going to have the next meeting of officials in Japan, and we remain with a set of options because that's what Canadians expect. But one thing I can reassure all Canadians that are watching at home this morning is that Canada will be at the table when it comes to trade.
The honourable member for Battleford Lloydminster.
Well, it's wonderful that he's getting his passport stamped, Mr. Speaker, but we're here to see results. During the final TPP negotiations, we had the CETA agreement signed in principle and used it to obtain better outcomes for Canada in the TPP. We must now do the same with the TPP and use it with Mexico as leverage in the upcoming NAFTA renegotiations. Why won't the new Trade Minister do the right thing and ensure that Canada enters NAFTA negotiations from a position of strength by ratifying the TPP?
The Honourable Minister for International Trade.
The honourable colleague will know, and he will see result, and he knows that Canada is taking a leadership role. We owe it to Canadian families and Canadian workers, and they're watching us this morning, Mr. Speaker, that when it comes to trade, Canada is taking a progressive approach, an inclusive approach. Canada stands out, Mr. Speaker, in a world where there's uncertainty and instability. We are the beacon of stability, predictability, and rule of law, and our progressive trade agenda is making a difference not only at home for workers, but around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals refused to support my private member's bill, claiming that the Minister of Transportation already has the authority required to establish safe railway crossings, particularly for cyclists and pedestrians. The Minister of Transportation cannot defend only the interests of railway companies. He has the duty to protect citizens' safety. So when will he act? Or does he prefer to wait until an accident happens? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transportation. I would like to thank my colleague for this morning's questions. As mandated by the Prime Minister, we are going to improve railway safety. This is an absolute priority for us. We remain committed to reducing the number of accidents and incidents on Canada's railway network. There are new technologies that have proven their effectiveness, and through our new railway safety improvement program, we will provide more than $55 million in funding for new investments throughout the country. Thank you.
Timmins, James Bay.
Their names were Chantal Fox and Jolyn Winter. They were only 12 years old and they were loved. And yet the Human Rights Tribunals found that government culpable in their deaths because the Minister of Health refused to plead for emergency mental health services in what the tribunal ruled was a, quote, life and death situation. That negligence led to their deaths and 24 other children being put into emergency care. They died while the Justice Minister was spending $707,000 fighting the tribunal. So why are lawyer fees more important to this government than the lives of First Nation children?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Our government remains fully committed to ensuring that First Nations children and families have access to the services and the support that they need. And to this day, it's more than 4,900 requests that have been approved under the First Nations children under the Child First Initiative. Regarding the tribunal's decision, we're reviewing the decision in those areas where the CHRT has determined that full compliance has not been reached, and we'll keep working with our First Nations partner, with the provinces and territories, to make sure that First Nations children have the care and the services that they need. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent.
First of all, let me pay all my respect to my friends from Battlefield and also from Calgary land. We celebrate today the 20th anniversary of the First Nation And by the way, Mr. Speaker, I didn't know that at that time you could be candidate at 14 years old. But, Mr. Speaker, let me talk about today. Monsieur le Président, le directeur parlementaire.
Mr. Speaker.
Pay all my respect to him. Monsieur le Président, aujourd'hui,
Mr. Speaker, this week, the Parliamentary Budget Officer.
It's pretty bad when your own side is heckling you. I just want to calm everything down, and it's bad when one side. I'd like to hear the question for the Honourable Member.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Parliamentary Budget Officer published a report this week that was devastating for the Liberal government. The PBO indicated that once again it was difficult to get information that was essential to do its work. Why is the government getting in the way of the Parliamentary Budget Officer doing his work?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, we have great respect for the work that the Parliamentary Budget Officer does on an ongoing basis. We work closely with the Parliamentary Budget Officer, and we will continue to do so. It's notable, Mr. Speaker, that in terms of his work with the Department of Finance, that he was provided with the information requested that happened for the budget decisions and the budget decision-making process that occurred under our government's mandate. And we did provide that information, and Finance did provide that information to the Parliamentary Budget Officer. And I appreciate the congratulations from the Honourable Member as part of the class of
L'Honorable Député de Louis.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent.
That was the good old days. You were on the right side of the podium.
Mr. Speaker, with all the respect I have for the President of the Treasury Board, what he just said does not truly correspond with what the Parliamentary Budget Officer said. He said that once again there were problems in accessing information, and it's not surprising. When this government spends so freely, it's clear that if the Prime Minister doesn't keep his word when it comes to public expenditures, when will it be clear to them that they have to live within their means?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to correct respectfully the Honourable Member. He said I had been a Conservative. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I had been a progressive Conservative. And since that party dropped the moniker both in name and reality, progressive, I chose to join a party that I am very proud of. to give me the opportunity to serve Canadians and work on behalf of all Canadians, even the honourable member, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, every day accused criminals are being set free due to court delays. A father accused of breaking his infant's ankles set free. A man who is accused of shooting an Ottawa area man twice in the head set free. The Minister of Justice says that she is proud of her record, but how can the minister possibly be proud of her record of negligence in failing to fill judicial vacancies, which has resulted in accused criminals like these to be set free?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am certainly very proud of the 67 substantive judicial appointments that I've made to the Superior Courts across the country. We are going to continue to work within our open and transparent process. I look forward to introducing more judges in the very near future. And with respect to court delays, I take these issues very seriously. That is why I'm working with my counterparts in the provinces and territories. We've identified priority areas where we are going to collaboratively address the court delays that are existing in the country.
The honourable member for Glengarry, Prescott Russell.
Hear, hear. Mr. Speaker, Canadians know the importance of clean water and wastewater treatment to building healthy and sustainable communities. This is fundamental to the well-being of Canadian communities, and after years of underinvestment, these systems need significant investments. Can the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities update this House on the investments the government is making in clean water and wastewater systems across Canada?
The Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for his question. Our government knows how important reliable water and wastewater systems are to the health and well-being of Canadians. That is why we introduced a $2 billion clean water and wastewater fund. And last week, we announced 730 water projects across Ontario with a combined investment of $1 billion, Mr. Speaker, including in the member's own riding of Glengarry, Prescott, Russell. We have announced more projects in 1 year than the previous government did in 4 years combined. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, when the Government of Canada provides $25,000 to the Legion for a new floor, the Legion is required to publicly account for every penny. When they send billions of dollars in transfers to First Nations, the community members who are supposed to benefit the most are too often left in the dark. Yeah. The minister says she cares about transparency. It has been 18 months now. They have done nothing. When will they provide basic information to band members that every other Canadian has and deserves?
The Honourable Minister for Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Everyone, including First Nations government, supports transparency and accountability. Since last summer, we have been working with Indigenous organizations, including the AFN and the Aboriginal Financial Officers Association, on ways to enhance mutual accountability. The government is also reaching out to community members and leadership through a comprehensive online engagement and is planning in-person sessions across the country over the coming months. We will continue to work in full partnership with First Nations to improve mutual accountability and transparency.
The honourable member for Ottawa-Vanier. Mr. Speaker, this week, this is Gender-Based Analysis Awareness Week, and I am proud to be part of this feminist government with a feminist Prime Minister who has committed to equality. Recently, the Minister of Science announced new measures for the Canada Research Chair Program to ensure more equity. Can the Parliamentary Secretary for Science tell the House how the increased participation of women in universities will lead to a better and prosperous Canada? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Science.
Ottawa-Vanier for the question. Our government understands that by increasing diversity, we bring different experiences and ideas to the table to advance Canadian science and grow our economy, create the good, well-paying jobs of the future. We reinstated the university and college academic staff system survey and strengthened equity provisions in both the Canadian Research Chairs and the Canada Excellent Research Chairs programs. As a scientist, the minister has spent 25 years fighting for women in science, and she and I will continue to do so. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Brandon Souris.
The Liberals were warned by pork producers that weakening the biosecurity measures would spread the terrible PED virus and put livelihoods of farmers at risk. Well, it turns out that due to the Minister of Agriculture's lack of action, there has now been another confirmed case of PED, the 9th this month. Farmers are sick and tired of the Liberal government's lack of action. So when will this government, this Liberal government, stop ignoring this biosecurity risk and work with the Manitoba pork producers to find a solution?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate my honourable colleague's question, and it is a concern. The health and safety of Canadians is the government's first priority. The CFIA is monitoring the program in place for this product, and if unacceptable levels are detected, the CFIA takes action, including product detention and recall. Mr. Speaker, we are addressing the problem.
The Honourable Member for Joliette. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I call upon the Minister of Justice. C-44 could grant private investors who use the Infrastructure Bank the same privileges enjoyed by the government itself. Essentially, it means that Quebec's laws and municipal bylaws could be circumvented. The government can say that that's not its intention. That's what the law says. Constitutional experts agree with us. The Legislative Assembly is unanimous. The federal government is alone in this. I call upon the Minister of Finance. Could we get a response? The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Set up with the same legal structure and framework as many other Crown corporations, and any project that will be undertaken by the Canada Infrastructure Bank will be required to follow all provincial, territorial, and municipal laws. We have committed to invest an historic amount of resources to build Canadian communities and rebuild the infrastructure that they need, and we will do that for every province while respecting the regulations that are currently in place. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Justice does not seem to have a voice. I wonder if the Minister of the Environment will have one. In Quebec, we have tools like the BAPE, the Public Hearings Agency, to make sure that development is done by while taking into account environmental impacts. With the Infrastructure Bank, all the projects could ignore our environmental protection laws. To act above Quebec's own laws, that's what the government is using to attract foreign investors. It's unacceptable and makes no sense. Will this government change the law to make sure that the Infrastructure Bank cannot never be an agent of the Crown?
The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the bank is one very important tool that is available to our municipalities and provinces to build the infrastructure they need. As I said earlier, I want to assure the honourable member the bank would have to abide by all the laws that are in place in provinces, territories, and municipalities. Our goal is to make sure that our provinces, municipalities understand that we are here to help them to build the infrastructure they need, whether it's housing, whether recreational facilities, whether it's any other amenities that they need to build strong, sustainable, and inclusive communities.
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, we're told it's hard to say this without laughing. Don't worry, it's not because we're granting expropriating authority to foreign investors that they're going to use it. Well, we saw what happened with Mirabel when we saw what happens when the federal government grants expropriating authority. And with C-44, they want to give their bank the right to ignore our agricultural zoning and do whatever they want on our lands. Is there someone in that government who's going to clue in and realize that we want nothing to do with their infrastructure privatization bank?
Mr. Speaker, we have in touch with the province of Quebec to assure that the role of the bank is not in any way to undermine the regulations and laws that are in place in every province, territory, and municipality. And we work very closely with all provinces to ensure that they're rightly supported to build the infrastructure, whether it's housing, whether it's public transit, whether recreational cultural facilities, or building shelters for women fleeing domestic violence, or seniors care facilities, or helping newcomers to welcome into our communities, or multicultural communities, or any other support that they need. We are here to stand with them while respecting the laws that they have. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Saanich, Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After yesterday's very disturbing announcement from the Rose Garden, the surrealistic orchestra striking up on the deck of the Titanic as Trump announced that the U.S. would leave the Paris Agreement, which it can't legally do for 4 years, but it does open up a chasm where there will be insufficient action. There was already insufficient action in the commitments that have been made by all governments in order to meet the Paris Accord. I wonder if the Minister of Environment can commit that Canada is prepared to do more, to look at our targets, to look at our developing country partnerships, and to work with subnational levels of government within the United States to keep moving to climate action.
Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the long-time advocacy work on climate change of the member opposite. We are all in this together. We have only one planet. Canada is steadfast in our commitment to the Paris Agreement. If the U.S. administration is going to step back, we're going to step up. I'm very happy to announce that next week we'll be introducing a motion in the House to support the Paris Agreement. I certainly hope that all members will stand up and indicate the support for our planet.
And that's all for today. We'll continue. Nous avons un appel au règlement. L'honorable.
We have a point of order. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When you made a decision about the whether a question was in order, you also said that you would take the time to look at the blues. And so I'd like to just elucidate the two elements of my colleagues' questions. First, it was about the consequences of the issue, and then also the amendment of the Parliament Act, which obviously falls under the government's responsibility.
If perhaps the parliamentary secretary had listened to the question, he wouldn't have hidden behind a speaker decision and stood up with more than words for the brave men and women that protect us.
I thank the honourable member. After the question was asked, we reviewed the question, and indeed the question was in order. The way that it was asked yesterday was different from the way it was asked today, and the content today was in order.